Right, hello everyone, and welcome to another lesson, another Python Turtle lesson where we will be continuing to work on what we have done with Python Turtle. Let me know if you're here, and let me know, make sure you've opened up the links that are in the description, that should be the Python Turtle PDF and the Trinket, so that you can do all of your coding on there. I shouldn't need to paste those into the chat because they're available in the description for this video, so please have a look at that. Okay, so some things that we've been having a go at so far. So far we have created a 10 by 10 row of squares, and we did that by looking at subroutines. We created a subroutine called next row. We had our 10 by 10 grid of squares with all of the different rows and all of that sort of thing. So let me just get up that stuff from our last lesson because I haven't actually got it up. Let's see if this is the one. Wait for it to load. So I've opened it in idle. This isn't quite the right one, but it's the beginning of what we were having a look at last time. So this was task 21. Just checking I haven't got anything further than that. Let's have a look at this one, just in case. No, that's not really much better. Okay, well, fine. Well, let's work from this one. So a reminder of how we did this. We mostly worked on task 23. A couple of you moved on to task 24, and you did manage to do that quite well. This lesson, we are going to be looking at some of the different ways we can create different colors, because there are several different ways we can do that. But first, I just want to remind everyone how we can do something like this. So square, neck shape, and I had def go to start, and then let's pull that in like that with the tab key. So put in there, go to start. We also had, in order to go to the start, we had to make it go upwards as well. So turtle dot which way would they be facing? So if they're already facing right, they need to turn left to go up, and then they'll turn left by 90 degrees. Then that'll be turtle dot forward, and let's say 200 again, and then turtle dot right 90. Okay, so that's how we had the go to start. We had the square, next shape, and we needed next row as well. So I'm just going to put this over here and that over there. So don't forget your brackets on go to start. Can't quite see this properly because I've zoomed out too far. Let's make this a little bit bigger so we can see it properly. So what else did we do? We used our turtle.speed as well of 0. Go to start, and then that's what I haven't done, the next row. I forgot to add that bit in, so let's add that bit in. Def next row, don't forget the colon, lifts the pen, so turtle.pen up, then goes backwards 600, so turtle.backwards 600, I think that's how they write it. Moves down 60, so turtle dot right 90, turtle dot forward 60, and then, oh, I've spelled that wrong. I knew I'd spell something wrong at some point. And then turtle dot left 90, and then it's going to put the pen back down again. Ooh, don't forget the turtle dot pen down. Okay, so let's run this bit of code. Oh, let's not forget to add in the next row bit in there as well. Next row, and then also we're indenting this whole thing for j in range 10, and we'll indent this whole thing here, and then hopefully this will run quite nicely. F5. Oh, I've got an error. I've spelt something wrong at some point, so let's find where I've written that. And so this is on, in go to start, I've written forward incorrectly, so let's try again. Again, it's gone very quickly. Oh, can't quite see all of them there. Maybe on next row I've messed something up. Pen up or pen down. Let's have a look. Not quite sure what's gone wrong there. Oh, 4j in range 10, I in range 10. So I've created, it's created all of these, but there must be something that's gone wrong here. Next row. Oh, hang on, have I got another error? Yes, I do. So it doesn't know what backwards is, so I think it might be back. Yeah, it's backward, not backwards. So let's try again. Going on, bring over the squares so you can see what I'm talking about. Make this a bit bigger. There we go. And we've got our 10 by 10. Okay, so that's what we had a look at last lesson. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. Again, I might have decided to start a little bit further back, so maybe 300 by 300 instead of 200 by 200, so that it can start at a reasonable point. So again, run that. Oh, now it's gone over this side a little bit, but it's much better than it was before. Okay. So there's our 10 by 10 grid, and it ends just down the bottom there. So that was just a quick recap of what we did last lesson. This lesson involves a little bit more thinking about the different subroutines and the different tasks involved there. So it's asking you to start a new program at this point, okay? To get our squares to be random colors, we need to use the random function. So we're going to import random. We've used that a few times before, so hopefully you should know exactly what we're talking about there. That will generate a random number. So we've got our random.randint, which means random integer, between 1 and 2. So it will create either a 1 or a 2. And so obviously these lines with hashtags at the front of them, there are comments for humans to read. That just shows us a few things that help us to understand the code a little bit. So task 25 is really straightforward. Again, just copy that, run the program, check it works. See if you can work out what it will do before you run the program. And also complete task 26. So extend the program above so that the pen color is one of 5 colors. So you've got, hopefully you should kind of get an idea of how to do that using this if statement. And then, so I'll give you 5 minutes to complete those two. Please let me know when you're done in the chat so that I can move on if you've all finished early. Yeah, just have a go at task 25 and task 26 in the booklet. Right, guys, so we should have fairly easily gotten that done. So just literally just copying this, copy, let's zoom in a bit so you can see a bit better to that point. Yeah, paste this. Remember where you need to make sure your indentations are. So an indent here, an indent here, and an indent at the bottom here as well. Just making sure that's the same as these. Correct, yeah. So if I was to run that, hopefully you should have understood that it will create a square that has a random color. So it could be red, could be blue. This one was blue, this one was red. If I run it a few times, you'll see that it picks randomly between red or blue. The second task was to extend the program so that the pen color is one of 5 colors of your choice, and then run to check if it works. So we're going to just, at the moment, I'm just going to copy these so that it picks a different color number. Let's say red, blue, green. Let's do 4. Red, blue, green, yellow, pink. Let's change that to 5. So that should have been that straightforward, just changing those numbers. And don't forget as well to change this number here, because otherwise it still would only ever give you red or blue. And so let's run that to see if it's working. Well, it's still only giving us blue. It's giving us red this time. Still only giving us red. Maybe, here we go. Here's a green. So, and there's a yellow and another red. Might even be a pink, actually. Yellow. There's a pink even. And red. So it's picking red a lot for some reason, but you get the idea. Okay, so moving on to task 27. This is introducing the idea of functions. Now, I have in lessons before talked about functions, but this is a good way of showing exactly how they work. So we need to run the code that chooses the colors many times. So what we're going to do is create a function to do this, which is similar to subroutines that we created last lesson. So the function will get a random number, it will get the color that corresponds to that random number, and it will send that color back to the main program by using this return command. Okay, so if I was, what I'd like you to do is copy and paste that into your thing and have a go. Check to see it works, and maybe make sure yours has the 5 colors in there as well, rather than just the 2. And then extend that program so it now also fills the square with a random color. So that you might have to look all the way back to task number 1 to remind yourself how we fill squares. Okay. And then what's it ask us to do next? It says should be able to do this by adding 4 lines of code. You might need to check back at one of the earlier programs that filled a shape, such as task 1. Just going to have a look and see if we're going to move on to task 29 later, but I just want to give you another 5 minutes to do task 27 and task 28. Okay, so have a go at that. I'll give you another 5 minutes. Okay, so hopefully you are able to complete those two tasks. So I will quickly go through those. So really all we're doing is changing this value, this section here that we did a moment ago, to create a function here. So I'm just going to add it in here, def, what was it, def get color. Okay, and then what I might do is instead of color, I'm going to return PC because this is what we called it. Okay, and then PC equals get color. Turtle.pen color PC. Okay, I mean, we could change that to color equals get color, and pen color is color. Okay, so, and then if I run it, it should do exactly the same. Oh, I forgot to add my colon. That was a silly mistake of mine. So I've got green, yellow, red, green again, pink. So that's some ways of creating our colors. Hopefully you also managed to do task 28, where we looked at how to fill the square with a random color. So again, it was maybe pink. So I'm going to have, again, we might have to look at the beginning part just to remind ourselves how to fill. So turtle.fill color, remember the Americanisms, turtle.fill color, and then we're going to put in there a different color. So I'm going to just leave that for a moment and come back to it in a second. Fill equals get color. It just means we don't have to write this over and over again. We can just write get color. Okay, and then I can say fill, and then I might even call this line equals get color line. Yeah, well, not C line, line. And then it should, that's the fill color. And don't forget you need your begin fill and end fill in there as well. So I'm going to put begin under, don't forget the turtle dot begin underscore fill, and then at the very end turtle dot end underscore fill and close brackets. Okay, so what that should have done is created yellow with green middle. There's another yellow with a blue middle, red with a red middle. Sometimes that will happen. Red, another red with a red middle. I don't know why it keeps picking red. Green, pink with a yellow middle, blue with a yellow middle, etc., etc. You can kind of see where this is going. Now, before we move on to the next task, where it talks about creating your square, filling the square, doing your pen color with a random color, fill color with a random color, your get color function from last time, all of that. So that is the get color function that we've just created. Get your row of squares to be drawn in a range of colors. Now, there are several ways we can do this. We could keep adding to this if statement if we want to add more colors to choose from. But that's going to get quite lengthy and quite long, quite difficult to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say get color if. That's going to be my if statement version of it. And I will put these, just edit these a little bit so that they still do what I expect them to do, and they still do exactly what they were doing before, but this time I'm going to add some extra ways of doing this. Now, there are several other ways we can do this. We could create, so we've got our if statements where we've got a random number. Another way we could do it is via a list. So I'm going to do def get color list. Oops, said L instead of colon there. So this is going to be a much nicer way of doing it, because I'm going to create a list called colors. And hopefully you remember how to create a list. It's these square brackets. I can put them in speech marks. So I can say, like I've done up here, red, blue, green, yellow, pink, red, blue, green. Oh, make sure I don't forget the speech marks. Green, yellow, pink. Oops. Pink. Might even add orange. And you can see that this is a lot less crazy, have a lot less going on this line there. And then what we can do is to pick from a list. You can do random dot choice. So hang on, let me just so PC equals random dot choice and then colors. That will hopefully, if I remembered how to do this properly, create a pick a random color from this list, choose a random item from this list, and it will assign it to PC. And then again, we need to not forget the return. Okay, so I'm going to just add that in, return PC. Okay, and then I'm going to just change this to get color list. I'm just going to adjust this last bit so that I don't have to keep changing every part of it, just the last section. So it's only those two that have needed to change. And you can see then, got get color list. It's still creating pink and red. I might even get an orange now. Yeah, I've got, that's still a pink, I think. Let me see if I've got an orange. There's an orange, which wasn't in my if statement list. And you can see that these three lines are a lot nicer to look at than these lines here. I mean, you might be able to understand this a little bit easier, but this one is fairly straightforward. So that's one other way of doing it. Another way of doing it, so I'm going to add 3 extra ways of doing it. So we've got our list. We could also, if you look at the very last page of this booklet, there is a massive list of all the different colors that you can pick. Now, I've already gone through and created a text file to that has all of these colors in it. Now, I will post that onto here once I haven't put it on there yet. So let me put it on there for you to remind, because I've forgotten that I needed to do that. But this text file, let me just open it up, see where I put it. I think I put it into that folder instead of this one. Let's see if this is the right one. Yeah, so I've got a text file with all the different colors in it. Some of the ones with numbers at the end of it I got rid of because they weren't really working. But all of these are in there correctly. So I've got Alice Blue, Antique White, etc., etc. Okay. So what I can do is I can upload a text file here. I'm just going to put this into the USB drive so we don't have too many things going in at once. So I'm going to upload a text file. I'm going to get it from the USB drive turtlecolors.txt is where I've saved that to. I haven't yet put that in there, have I? So let me do that quickly. Just uploading the turtlecolors.txt. If you want to go into the student resources year 10 and the practical section, it should be in there now. You can just double click on it, even copy and paste if you prefer, or download it and then upload it as I did, or you can copy it into here, create a file name for it, etc. But now you can see I now have 137 options. So let's create the way of being able to access this. Remembering how to create a file in Python, or read from a file in Python. So let's do that. Def get color file. Okay, and so I'm going to do colors. In fact, first I'm going to open the file. So with open, and what's the name of the file? turtlecolors.txt. So I've got to make sure I've spelt that correctly, the same way that I've spelt it up here. Okay, turtlecolors.txt. And then remember, how do we read from a text file? We need to put comma and then R to make sure it's in read mode. Okay, and then as file, that will just mean that we are saved, the name of the file is being saved in a variable called file. We could call this whatever we want, but it just makes it easy to see what it's talking about when we say file. And then we can say there's a couple of things we can do here actually. What we can do is file.read and then .split lines. Now before I showed you a way of doing this as file.read lines, but that included all of those \n. Do you remember all those \n that we had in there? That would be kind of annoying to have all of those in there as well. So if you do split lines, it doesn't include all of those \n in them. Okay, it just gives you a list of lines. And what I can do is I can do the exact same thing as I did up here, but instead of having to type in all the words, I can just read them from the text file. So I can say colors equals file.read.splitlines. Then I've finished with the file because I've already saved all of the colors into a list. So I can just do the same thing as I did here. PC is random.choice colors, and it will return PC. And if I change this to get color file, again, file, and what I'm actually going to do is print out what the color is, so that you can just see what two colors have been picked. So this is going to be beige and sandy brown. So beige in the middle and sandy brown around the outside. This one's olive drab and light coral. Much more interesting than red, blue, green, yellow, pink, orange, and much easier for us to create with only just a few lines of code, and it doesn't have to go onto different, don't have to scroll along to see all the different ones, because they're all saved in there. We don't have to access them and type them in manually. Okay, so that's the second extra way of doing it. So that's your if statement, your color list, and your color file. I'm going to show you one more way that we can do this, because I just found it really interesting, the different ways we can do this. So we've got def get color RGB. Now hopefully you remember from our lessons at the very beginning of the year when we talked about binary and hexadecimal and all of that kind of thing, that on the screen we have 255 by 255 by 255 different colors available. So what we can do, we can say R equals random dot rand int between 0 and 255. G, same idea, random dot rand int between 0 and 255. And B, same idea, random dot rand int 0 and 255. And then what we can do, because Turtle has a way of being able to use this, these RGB values, you can put them directly into the colors. So instead of having to type the name like we've done for all of these, so a string, we can just tell it some 3 values as what we call a tuple. So what I'm going to do is return RGB. Just as simple as that. And let's see what it comes up with this time. So if I get rid of file and I put RGB here, and I do the same thing here, RGB. Now this time you should be able to see color, the different numbers rather than the name of a color. So 142, 186, 174. So red, there is 142 reds, 186 greens, and 174 blues. So kind of a grey color, which you can see there is very grey, but there's a little more blue involved there. Then the second one, 172, 69, 24, definitely more red in that one. So if I run it again, same idea, very pink, very green, but you can see like RGB, this one here is very green, which is what, because it's at 255 in the middle, and this one here is very pink because it's got a lot of red in it and not a lot of the other 2 colors, maybe a fair amount of blue, but hopefully you can kind of see all of the different ways that we can create colors in Python. Now this one's quite complicated. You have to type 2 lines of code for every new color you want to add, and you have to change this value here. Whereas this one, all you have to do is type an extra word with a comma between it. Just make sure you've got those speech marks and commas involved. But then the color file, even more colors available. So on this one, we had 5 colors available, and you had to, if you wanted to add an extra color, you had to add 2 lines. This one we had 6 colors available, but you can add as many colors as you want, but you've got the disadvantage of having to scroll across. This one, we had, how many was it? 137 different colors available because we're reading the colors from a text file. But this one here, we're looking at 255 times 255 times 255. I think that's something like 16 million colors. Let's just do that maths. Yeah, 16.5 million colors. Okay, so you can see that there's a lot more, there's a lot more random colors involved there to be able to do that one there. All right. So, having looked at all of those, I would like you, hopefully you've managed to type all of those in yourself as well as we were going, but so should have done, yeah, so you should have been able to create your row of squares with a 10 by 10 grid of colored squares. Okay, so if you can't remember how to do that, go back to task 22 and 23 and create some random colors. I might get onto task 30, but I don't think that's going to be possible. If you can show me that you can do that, that would be wonderful. I might show you that I've been able to do it myself, but I might just kind of leave that as a little extension task for you, because that is the final task, and I'm not going to spend a whole lesson on that after the half term. Okay, so task 29, please, and see if you can use some of the different ways of getting colors. You might need to look back and copy some of these over, but make sure you've got pen colors of random colors, fill colors of random colors, and drawing your 10 by 10 grid with random colors and using one of these more interesting things. If you've managed to finish that, I would ask you to have a go at seeing if you can create a grid of shapes that are random shapes rather than just squares. And I'll show you my version of that in just a moment, but I just want to get you started on that one first because I've been talking for a while. So have a go at that. I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Just for those of you who are wanting to get started on the task 30, I just wanted to show you my version of task 30. This was run in idle rather than in Trinket because it's a little bit easier to see all the different shapes if you run it in idle. And I did also make the lines just a little bit thicker so that you can see them all nicely. But you can see I've got 10 by 10 grid, and it's creating anything between a triangle and I think it's a pentagon I've got there. Might even have octagons maybe. No, I think it's just hexagons I think is the highest I go up to. So anywhere between 3 and 6 sides. You might want to try and remember back to when we were creating shapes that were like all of these different shapes and how we created them without knowing what the angle was, just by knowing how many sides there were. You might want to look at that. You also probably want to think about how big your shape is. So you're not always going to, so you can see here that this pentagon has a shorter line than this triangle. So you might have to think about how to make it look a little bit nicer like that. All right, so I'll give you a bit longer, but I might go through this, but I will probably go through task 29 first. All right. Right, guys, so I get the feeling that you're probably at a stage where you've either gotten really stuck on this or you are already finished, so and having a go at task 30. So let's have a look at task 29. It says add the get color function to your program from last week. That's already in there. You should now be able to get, add the get color function. So whichever of these you've decided to use, copy that into your program from last week. So I don't know if it's going to let me go back that far actually. Let's go way back to the beginning of this lesson where I put in all of the different bits. Let's see. I think, yeah, I just copied and pasted, didn't I? That's a shame. Let's see. I don't have another version of this open somewhere, do I? Nope. Oh well. Okay. So our program from last week was looking at creating our 10 by 10 grid of squares. So I'm going to just quickly type that up. So starting from that point, import turtle def square, and that's for I in range. In fact, I have this elsewhere, so let me just get that. That'd be easier for me to do. So just going to cheat my way through this because I've already done this before. So we've got our turtle.speed 0 at the very beginning. Go to start is in there. Our square is in there. Next shape is in there. Next row. This was another way of doing it, I'm just going to paste in the version that we're using. Get color. Ooh, didn't I get rid of that? Don't know what happened there. Oh, I know what happened. I just copied that over again. That was silly of me. Here we go. I'm just going to go back to this point. There we go. So get color RGB, which I'm going to use here, RGB, and then RGB. So what I've done here is I've created another function called colored square, which actually uses some of these other functions in there as well. Well, this one's not a function; it's just a subroutine without any of the return bits in there. But so I've got my get color RGB. It creates turtle.pen color, turtle.fill color, and then it begins to fill, creates my square, which I don't even have to write in all of the bits for it, square, and then turtle.endfill. So then all I have to do is just a couple of lines here. This is the main program. Go to start. Then I'm creating a 10 by 10 grid where it's creating my colored square and then going on to the next shape, then on to the next row. What I'm going to do, instead of having this in Trinket, because I know it runs very slowly and runs very not very well, I'm just going to run this in idle instead, because that's where I've copied it from. And there you go. There's all my different colored squares, which you can also see the lines are different colors as well, but you can't see them quite as well. So what I'm going to do, which will show you, that's those 10 by 10, it will show you in some of the extra bits at the end here. Let's see where it is. That's the circle. Trying to see where it's gone. There was definitely something in here which talked about the thickness of the turtle. Let's see if it's at the beginning. It might be at the beginning. Ah. Let's see, because I'm sure there was one somewhere. Let me see where I've put it. There's the speed, the shape, the mode, which is fine. Forward, backward, right, left, home, go to. So this go to is another option you can have when you're trying to get to a certain point in the different places. No. Let's see if I can find it in some of my other code then, because for whatever reason it had that in there. Now, one of the other things you can do is look up Python turtle. Let's see if this will work. Python turtle, and you can see here the documentation, docs.python.org. That shows you all of the different functions that turtle has. So forward, backward, right, left, go to, set X, set Y, set heading. So this is to move and to draw. So we've got our pen color, pen size. So pen size or width are two things. They are interchangeable, as is shown here. So pen down, you can also use PD or down. That will also do exactly the same thing. Pen size or width will change the width of the pen. So I'm just going to go turtle.width. Oh, I'm typing this in the wrong place. Let me put it in the idle instead, because otherwise you're not going to be able to see this. Start back over here. Turtle.width. And then I'm going to set it to maybe, I think it's something like 5, just because it's already set at 1. So I don't want it to be too much bigger than that. So now you can see that that thickness is quite a bit bigger, and you can see a lot better the lines that I've drawn there. Okay, where are we at in terms of time? We've only got a couple of minutes left, but what I will do is quickly show you my code for task 30, unless you feel I haven't quite gone over task 29 in enough depth, but hopefully you can kind of see you're using your get color, you're using your pen color, changing the pen color, using your fill color, begins fill, and then you just create a square, end fill, right? That's really straightforward, isn't it? It should be really straightforward. Okay, let's go. It's not showing up. There we go. So this is my code for task 30. Okay, go to start, which we've already used, next shape, which we've already used, next row, get color. So I've got my RGB values, which is the quickest way of doing it, or the quickest way for the most amount of colors. It's going to, so this bit here is something new, where I'm creating a random shape, and it's creating a random number between 3 and 6 to have to work out the amount of sides we're going to have. I could have written sides here instead of num, but I decided to write num instead. So for whatever in range num, so I could have put I could have put whatever. I put a little underscore there just to show that this variable is not going to be used, so I didn't get any errors at the side here. Num, which is how many sides we're drawing, is going forward by to make sure that the amount, the drawing wouldn't be too big if it's a, say, 3-sided shape as opposed to a 4-sided shape. So if I just made this 100, then it would look very different than if I made it 100 divided by number. And then 360 divided by number, that's how we calculate the angle. So if I show you what it looks like with just 100, it looks kind of crazy because all of the sides are exactly the same shape, length, and the bigger the shape, the more sides the shape has, the bigger the shape will get. So that's why I divided it. So 100 divided by num, okay? And if I run it again, you'll see it looks a lot nicer, and it's got that little bit of space in between with our next shape bit there. And then colored shape, same idea as before, but instead of writing square here, I write random shape. I've changed my pen size to 3 so you can see the width all right, and it goes to the start using this bit of code here, creates my 10 by 10, creates a color shape, next row. Really quite straightforward. All you had to do was make sure you have this kind of code in here, which will create a random shape for you. And this bit is the bit that I think most of you would have struggled with. So I have run over time, but I hope that was somewhat useful to you, and I hope you enjoyed using Python Turtle and that you have enjoyed being able to use it to do all sorts of bits and bobs. So what I want to remind you, please remember to share your link to Trinket into Show My Homework so that I can see what you've done. Any extra work that you've done in terms of Python Turtle, please send my way. It's good to have a look at them, and it's good to just see what you've been playing around with. Always, the more experience you have playing with Python, the more chance you have of being able to understand what we're talking about when it comes to the exams, and even just being able to program stuff in real life. When it comes to our programming project, that's also really useful as well. So I hope these like 5 lessons on Python Turtle have been quite useful to you, but also a bit more interesting than me just sitting in front of you and saying code this. So I will see you all on Friday. Obviously next week is our half term, so I won't be seeing you next week if you aren't joining me on Friday, but I do hope to see you on Friday, and otherwise I will see you next week. Have a good week.